travel to really fund and work with companies from anywhere. The reason why we're doing it is because Techstars has been running for over 10 years. We have run over 100 accelerator programs, invested in over 1,500 companies now, and we often meet founders for which the relocation requirement to participate in our programs is really not an option. Sometimes it's the nature of the business that really requires you to be where you are, personal reasons of the founders, or even clients that are geographically located in some strategic places where it doesn't make sense for you to go and move somewhere else for 3 months. So for those reasons, we've built Techstars Anywhere. And really because Techstars was built on this fundamental belief that great companies can come from anywhere. Techstars itself comes from Boulder, Colorado. The reason why we started the company there was because our founders lived there and they wanted to create and develop a tech community in that space. So they just decided to stay there and help build the community, right? Fast forward to today, partially through Techstars, but other organizations alike, Boulder and Denver regions are a really strong tech community. So home to, big companies. One of them, SandGrid, for example, that started at Techstars in a basement in one of our accelerator programs, is now the first company that ever gone through a accelerator and has been going to IPO. So they went IPO like a month ago, right? And they've always been present and headquartered in the Boulder Denver region. So we do believe that you can start off anywhere. I myself come from a small tech community. I'm from Lisbon, Portugal. And first as a founder and later by helping entrepreneurs, I've kind of like seen the pain and the benefits of trying to build a company outside a really big tech community. So I've always been interested in finding ways to create bridges and develop opportunities for founders between like the large tech, big established geographies like Silicon Valley or New York, and then smaller communities. So to talk about that today, we have 5 founders that are connected to different Techstars programs. So I'm just gonna hand it over to you guys to quickly introduce yourselves and your companies and the places where you're from.
I started this end. My name is Greg Cohn. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Burner, which is based in Los Angeles. Burner gives users smart phone numbers that enable them to take control of their identity, privacy, and productivity. And I'm also, in addition to that company being a portfolio company of the Techstars Ventures investment portfolio, I've been a mentor to multiple Techstars programs, including several that are now running in Los Angeles, the music accelerator and the healthcare accelerator and others. So happy to be here today.
Stephanie Lepke, I'm the CEO and founder of GoKit. GoKit is carpooling technology for schools, teams, and active families. We help parents to connect with other families to have a transportation mode for their kids. We joined the company. We started out of Connecticut, but we joined Techstars Mobility out of Detroit, which connected us to the entire mobility space. And now the company is distributed with a core team in New York.
Hi, Michael Malin, founder of a company called Stasis. We do smart patient monitoring. Essentially, we focus on monitoring hospital patients, catching early issues of decline, trying to intervene before some critical event, such as a heart attack. We started in Los Angeles. We went through the inaugural digital health program at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, and we have offices both in Los Angeles and also Bangalore, India. And we have some other team members scattered in other countries around the world.
So my name is Shantanu Bala, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Somatic Labs. We have a technology that allows us to create a sensation that moves across your skin, and we can use that to communicate information. So if I wanted to tell you to turn left at an intersection, you'd actually feel something moving across your forehead to the left, telling you to look there and turn there. And We're based in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're developing out that technology to communicate in environments where it's too loud or your eyes and ears are occupied.
Hi, my name is Dawn Dickson. I'm the founder and CEO of PopCom. We make software that makes self-service retail smarter. We just completed the inaugural LA class of Techstars in October, and we're now based in Columbus, Ohio.
Thank you, guys. Great crew here. So I want to start. So, like, when we think about where to start a company, how to go about the decision of the location of your company, we often think about resources, right? Access to resources. Some of them, like, more intrinsic, like your personal networks, or access to capital or access to talent. Some others, like things like more external, like governmental support, legislation, things like that. Cost of living, for example, right? So I'm sure, like, you guys think about that when you go about deciding where you are now, where you're gonna be in the future. So I want to start there, right? By asking you what was your thought process on deciding where you are, and if you have thoughts on any changes that you're going to be doing in the future of your company's in terms of geography.
I can start at the end. So in our case, it was a very overt decision. I had left Yahoo, where I worked for almost 6 years, and spent a ton of time in the Bay Area, but was based in LA, and going back and forth all the time, and deciding to start a company in Los Angeles versus San Francisco, for us, was all about being a slightly bigger fish in a somewhat smaller pond. LA now doesn't seem exactly like the boondocks of tech, but at the time was not nearly as active a tech environment as it is today. I'd like to think we were a small part of helping form that community. And so, it's very hard in a market like San Francisco and other top markets like that to be one of the top companies in town, and we just felt that we could create a bigger profile and attract people and get to know the investor community better. And I had a network there as well, and so that was the number one thing for us.
So in my case, I really came up with the idea for the company because I left New York City and moved with my family to the suburbs, and only then I came across that transportation for kids is really a problem here in the US, because half of the schools no longer have buses, and there's a lot of driving involved with after school and school driving, and as a working parent I couldn't do all of that. So the idea for the company was born because of kind of a move. Later on, we initially, as a startup, you don't have funding, right? So you kind of, go and search for a team that you can afford. And so we started with a distributed team of developers in South America, and then after we got into Techstars Mobility, I really learned about the opportunity to go into a complete new tech ecosystem in Detroit, which is centered around the OEMs that are based there. And the advantage of really tapping into a new kind of out of Silicon Valley, out of New York system is that you get to meet an industry that you're not familiar with. You can tap into the resources. We are now highly connected. Our first VC investor, InMotion, is here. That's the Jaguar Land Rover arm. We met in Detroit because they knew about Texas mobility. So it's like once you tap into a new ecosystem and you're open of finding talent wherever they are, it's really very helpful. And we continue to be distributed because that's a very good model for startups. And given what you guys are doing now with your startup accelerator, the technology is so amazing. It doesn't feel like we're distributed because we have our calls at 8 a.m. in the morning. We have the daily check-ins. Everything is communication is through Slack, and my CEO is based in London. And the advantage is you can also tap into other markets faster.
I think one thing we find hard that technology doesn't really solve yet until we figure out a way to distort time is the time zone. It's like how do you guys play the fact that CTO is like 8 hours ahead of the rest of the
No, so that's a good point. So this is precisely why we work with South America. It's basically the same time zone as the US, and we say 5 hours. That's the max. So we have core overlap of working hours. with a team, and it does have advantages because the part of the team can start on new things the next day. So we really have like Europe and the Americas time zone, and that works well for us.
To start on talking about that before why we started in LA, so we have a large team in India as well, which depending on if there's daylight savings times or not is a 12.5 or 13.5 hours. So there's very little overlap. And one of the biggest things we've been able to do to best utilize that is really delegate responsibilities for teams that are more in local time zones. So there's less overlap in terms of directly the projects that they're working on. There are some cases, for example, like technical support, though, where we do essentially have engineers that are able to support our customers 24/7, and we cater to hospitals. So having people in their local time zones be able to support and not have to work the night shift in our industry is actually really comes to our advantage. In terms of why we started in Los Angeles, I went to USC in LA, and that's where I met my co-founder. So we built a network there. And so honestly, the main reason we started in LA was just because that's where we had the strongest network. And some of our earliest employees, as well as our earliest investors, kind of all came through the alumni network of our school. In terms of why we didn't choose to move, honestly, one of the biggest reasons has come down to lifestyle. The people in our company really love living in LA and like having the combination of the weather and the access to a lot of the nature and the surrounding areas, and then everything that the urban environment offers.
To LA, it's great.
Yeah, so it's very easy to get people also in other areas to move to LA, or to at least come, work remotely and say visit our office once every 3 months. So it's easy to get people to come to us.
So thinking about the resources or things that we have available in Arizona that are not there elsewhere. I grew up in Arizona, so there's a lot of things that I know about Arizona that most people don't. One would be that it has the largest research university in the United States with a student population approaching 100,000. By extension, it ends up having the largest research budget in the United States, gathering more grant money into that ecosystem and into that university than just about any other city in the United States. And in addition to that, you also have a lot of activity in the biosciences and hard tech. So we're housed in an office. We pay about $500 a month in rent. We have access to a full machine shop, industrial 3D printers, and the people next to us are working on anything related to flexible electrodes to cancer diagnostics. There's all kinds of things happening there that are relatively invisible because there's not as much, I guess you could say, marketing or sugarcoating applied to the content. That said, it also getting into that ecosystem is a result of me spending about 6 years working at a lab at Arizona State University, building connections with a lot of scientists and researchers, and getting to know a lot of people who are doing really interesting and fascinating work, and that ends up becoming a really important factor when we're thinking about, okay, who do we hire or how do we grow? We now have a really large pool of people we can think about who are not being recruited by anyone in Silicon Valley and are not being recruited by pretty much any other company just because nobody knows about the work they're doing.
I'll keep it really, really brief. We left LA to build the company in Columbus, Ohio, because of the many resources in the smaller but emerging startup ecosystems that kind of get overlooked. So, it's not as competitive. The cost of living is great. There's a talent pool from major companies that we can pull from. So that's one of the reasons why I chose to go there. And there's so many. As these cities want to become a major player, everyone wants to be the next Silicon Valley or Silicon Beach or Silicon whatever. It's an opportunity for us to really go as entrepreneurs and make a larger impact and get more visibility. So for me, it was kind of a no-brainer with cost of living, access to talent, and the capital. I closed my round in 3 weeks, and we continue to run lean in a market where you can get an offer for $500 in a 2-2 apartment for $1,000 as opposed to LA, we were paying like $3,000 for a small apartment. So just the timing, but I think later, as we grow, we will continue to branch out, maybe go back to the West Coast and have office there as well.
Just piggybacking on one thing Dawn said quickly, and Shantanu touched on as well. You know, investors around the world are chasing yield, right? You read every day in the trades about how there's a glut of seed investing, or too much money in VC or whatever it might be, and they're looking for moneyball opportunities to find undervalued or underchased things. So there are like legitimate advantages, not just cost savings, right? Like in terms of being able to differentiate yourself, especially if you're tapping into expert networks or industries where you have additional advantages.
So I want to exactly touch on that, right? Building on that, and you have resources and personal networks and belief that you want to establish a company kind of like in a smaller community, take advantage of some of those resources. But I'm interested in knowing like if the investors that you're talking to think the same way, or like at some point like push you to just go too early or to establish part of the company in larger tech communities. So has that come into conversations with your investors?
Yeah, so we've been point blank told to move to Silicon Valley on multiple occasions.
What did you say?
Well, we give pretty much that same answer that I give, to the question that you asked earlier. We pointed out all the reasons that we're wanting to stay in Arizona, and I think it's important to give pushback when you have something that you see as an advantage, because I think that that's actually what the investors are looking for. But
That like you feel like that would be something like would change your valuation, like the place that you decide, because your runway is just much longer, smaller place, like the costs are cheaper. So does that like make any influence on the valuation of a company?
that I'm not sure. Maybe someone else could.
No, I was going to say, I was definitely got feedback about raising capital in the Midwest as opposed to in the Bay because of the valuation that we would get, saying, well, you will get a higher valuation at your stage if you're in the Valley and a lower valuation in the Midwest. But for me, it wasn't about that as much, because I knew the valuation that I wanted to get for my round, which I was firm on it. But it was more of being able to have access to the help and the guidance and the network that I needed to get us from the early stage to that next level, to that Series A, where we then are really ready to go and play in a playing field. It's still, to me, Silicon Valley moves very fast, a lot going on. There's a lot of noise in like the early stage startup, pre-revenue, pre-product. So I feel like once we get to the revenue stage, Series A, then we can be more competitive in that space. But building in the Midwest where we have access and more hands-on was attractive for me.
I would just add to that by saying, you do have to take into consideration the structure and type of fundraising you want to do, not just the pure valuation, right? So like the kinds of things that, a Stanford graduate who's an ex-Google product manager, trying to do their first company as a first-time founder is going to get a different kind of reception in Silicon Valley, where, you can quickly raise an angel round from a bunch of relationships you have, and ex-Google and Facebook engineers who are rich now, and VCs who are just chasing that. Versus if you are a passionate founder trying really hard to put together an angel round, in a secondary market. That can be more valuable and a better decision for you. But if you sort of wake up in a small market that has no VCs in it, trying to raise a $2.5 million seed round for your product, that's going to be really hard, right? So you have to take that into consideration in your strategy.
I would add to that. I think the smaller markets have the disadvantage that the angels are not as, they're not there. So, frankly, raising a seed round in Detroit, the angels are not really ready for tech startups. So I came back to my New York network, international network, and raised the round there. So that is something to be considered in the big hubs. That it's just like a given. This is how a tech startup works. This is how we operate. These are the cost structures, and investors who invested in completely different verticals are not used to this type of investment. So I would say, as much as it's valuable to start companies in smaller markets, that's the downside, in our experience.
seems like there are some leveling factors if you look at AngelList or, not to drink the sort of cryptocurrency Kool-Aid right now, but there are certainly newer and more distributed ways of raising money. And if you have a passion for a problem, you can find a way to get it going. We actually bootstrapped our company. We launched before raising a dime. That had its own challenges, but once we did, we were able to raise money, more convincingly. And so, every founder, I think every founding team kind of has to find a way, given their unique set of conditions, to get what they need.
Yeah, quickly, I'd just jump off there. We started off with a $75,000 grant, and we bootstrapped the company for quite a while with that before raising funding. And then, whether we were in LA or whether we were somewhere else, I strongly believe if you have a good company and can articulate where your position has its advantages, you can still go to SF in New York and other places and get the capital. You don't have to live there. I think to your point, it's really just about articulating why you have advantages being in your local geography. Even in LA, which is a fairly large ecosystem, we raised most of our capital in LA, or in SF in New York, not in LA.
How has it been on finding talent, especially in more specific technologies where there's a limitation of certain people in certain places? Has that, you alluded a little bit to that being an advantage of being in Arizona. Hiring generally, how have you guys seen that playing in your favor or not in the geography they're at? And if you have a distributed team, tell us a little bit about how that works.
We can just acknowledge, right, hiring talented people, especially, is hard in any configuration, in any market. I personally enjoy not having to compete with Uber and Twitter and Airbnb and Dropbox for every single hire we're trying to make. We have lost candidates in Los Angeles to SpaceX and to Snap. That does happen, but there aren't just quite as many, people willing to pay stupid money for large numbers of people that, they're only 50% of them are going to still be there in a year, right? And just kind of have a different model. We're more cultivated. We're only a 15-person team. We do have distributed people all over the country, and in fact outside the country as well. And so, we are also to some degree a mission-driven product. Burner is about privacy, and people come to us who want to be part of that and work in that space. And so the opportunity to kind of, you can't just wait for great people to show up, but the opportunity for that interplay between kind of being in a smaller market, where you can stand out more, number one, and number two, where you can be open to people. It's a supply and demand situation like anything else. So if you widen your inclusion criteria for people you're willing to hire geographically, there's just more supply out there to go find.
In terms of the talent, we are still in the New York market with our core tech team, and that's the reason why we need to be distributed. The salaries are brutal. We're not only, for the New York region, we're not only competing with tech companies, but with all the banks that are looking for engineers, for the media space, and everyone is looking for developers. So it's really tough to make it in an early stage startup environment with the New York office, and this is exactly why we have parts of the team in other geographies. And for us, it works really well. That's as I said, technology is there. So what we're trying to do is always have teams in these distributed areas, not just a single person in an office, but it's always 2 or 3 together. So that really helps because they're part of the team then.
One thing to quickly chime in, I think the practices are really important too. So for example, our daily engineering stand-up, even though half our engineering team is in LA, everybody stays at their desk and attends it remotely, virtually. So everyone's on the same playing field, not half the people are all in a room together and the other half are kind of going, what? I didn't quite hear you. So it forces everybody to use the audio visual, to speak loud into the mic, and to make sure the video is working and the meeting starts on time and all that sort of stuff.
That's so interesting because Techstars Anywhere, we use we do our stand-ups on Slack, for example, and that's something we've never thought about. Before you actually have teams in different time zones in different spaces. You just become creative and use technology to allow you to do those things. Pretty cool.
Going a little bit off what you were saying, Greg, around being mission driven. I think for for us, it's been very important, whether it be Los Angeles or Bangalore, and I think this is actually especially been important for us as we've recruited in Bangalore, to really be able to clearly articulate the type of employee that you're looking for and the culture that you're really creating. And actually something that we created more recently is essentially just like a little funny hiring video that pretty quickly showcases the culture of our company. And it does two things. It either gets people really, really excited about the prospect of working with us, or kind of laughs at us and like who are these goofballs, or why would I want to work there? And that's fine. That's, that means that we're not wasting either of our time trying to go through an interview process just to see that they're not a good, cultural add to our organization. So I think it's really important to understand as early as possible the type of employee that you are looking for, beyond just the hard skill sets, but really how they'll fit into the organization. And especially since we're on the Techstars stage, I know something that David Brown, one of the Techstars founders, had said a while back, is that there's a subtle nuance between culture fit and culture add. He's always focused on this idea of culture add. So it's not, how does this person that I'm interviewing fit into the organization, which in time you can see would create almost a more homogenous culture, or rather culture add. So what new things do they bring to the table? And ever since I heard him say that, that's been a big thing that both myself, my co-founder, and others that do hiring really try to think about. And it's actually been pretty tremendous, the diversity and perspective that we found in our candidate pool, and it comes everything from how we articulate our job descriptions to the questions we ask in our interviews. So I think it's really important to understand that, and that can help draw, even in more competitive markets, the candidates that are right for your company.
Gonna light speed us here to our last question before we open up for other questions from the audience. And for this one, it's actually my favorite question. I'm gonna use time machine, hypothetical time machine here, to fast forward us to 2028. So 10 years from now, how do you guys think that your companies, that where you guys gonna be working? Like we are at CES, right? So which technologies do you think you're gonna be using? How do you think the organization is gonna be? Do you think we're gonna be working from space or something else?
I can say, so in 10 years from now, I'm planning on us have been acquired by then.
So yeah, this company or another one, whatever you're doing.
IPO.
No, I really, I don't want to be the CEO of a founder that's IPO. That's a lot of stress. I would like to be on vacation and relaxing and not managing that.
You're saying that publicly.
But yeah, I definitely see, I look forward to looking at this technology that we're developing, where we're integrating facial recognition and AI into payments on vending machines and kiosks, and I look forward to looking at it as a founder as I see it in the use everywhere that I go. So I can't wait till that day comes where something that my team and I built is everywhere in these machines, and I can look and say, you know what, we built this. It's in a place that I never imagined. And the cool thing about thinking about 10 years ahead is that there's things we've never even thought of yet that are gonna come out that we don't even know or can't even fathom. So I can't wait to see what my company becomes that I have never even thought of yet. And so that's the exciting part about even being a founder, is how we can continue to pivot and evolve. So I think just 10 years I'll just continue to be ahead of the latest technology as well.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, we started 2 years ago at a kitchen table really thinking there must be a better way for parents to get their kids from A to B, and we just did it, and everyone said, you're crazy, no, that's liability, you can't, no one is going to do that. So, I mean, you get 60 no's, and then someone says yes. And now, Alexa is selling millions and millions of devices. All the kids are using that, and we're going to use Alexa soon, and we're moving into cars. We're actually demoing here at CES already our technology in cars, and that is something, 2 years ago, all these no's. I mean, technology is moving so quickly, and that's the advantage if you have a small team, if you have backers, and in our case, we have also corporates that believe in us. JLR is a great partner, and kind of let us do these things and suggested to move into cars quickly. So I think it's very tough for any startup founder to say 10 years, because it's even in these 2 years, so many things have changed. But in terms of, I would really second move with what makes sense and move quickly. And my dream is to stay in a distributed and very hybrid and fast way and work with people wherever they are to really find the best talent. And in our case, we serve parents, so I do want to have parents in my team, and they are kind of physically bound to their family, so we can't move them anywhere. So, and that's the great thing about technology. You can have these people work with you.
I think going off of that, I think in 10 years it's going to become almost an expectation for most people that they're going to stay in where they are. So the whole idea of relocating is going to become such a massive barrier that distributed teams or distributed ways of raising capital or whatever it may be, I think with a lot of the current tools and the future tools that will come about with the internet, it's just going to become more and more of an expectation that companies, as easily as they get larger and larger, will be in multiple locations, and it won't be seen as a limitation, but actually as a strong asset. Because you haven't disrupted small communities or families that have been asked to move. And so I think that, it's very hard for me to imagine where technology is going to be in 10 years, my dream, but I think from a cultural expectation perspective, it's going to be less of a preference to stay in one position and almost more of an expectation where I'm just not going to be hired unless I can stay in my small community in the Midwest, and then I'll just work remotely for the company that may be headquartered in San Francisco. But the headquarter could have under 10 people and be a 1,000+ person company and operate arguably more efficiently than a company that's all based in one office today.
So with Somatic Labs, we have pretty much one goal and one goal only, which is to take your sense of touch and make it reprogrammable the same way you can reprogram pixels on an LCD display. So we want to animate your sense of touch and make that something that you can change and manipulate.
Very interesting. I'll take the time machine question as an industry question rather than projecting where we'll be personally, and just say one of the things. First of all, I hope that a lot of the efforts that organizations like Techstars and many other NGOs are making around STEAM and diversification of the workplace will be paying off. And I think having remote people and opening up to that does open up a more diverse and sort of situationally more accepting of people who need to work from home or work part-time or whatever, and that just diversifying the talent pool means getting a richer talent pool ultimately. So that's sort of one piece. And then the same thing, a similar effect is happening, I think, on the funding side. So, it used to be there was sort of this, small clubby VC community, and now there's angel and there's angel, list, and there's seed and there's pre-seed and there's post-seed and there's, seed 2.0 and there's, A and A prime. There's sort of all these different ways of funding, and there are people who are interested in funding what used to be referred to, sort of negatively as lifestyle businesses. There are people who are interested in funding, businesses that don't necessarily achieve venture scale, but as you can see from the numbers, like Techstars numbers are all public, right? There is one IPO in there, and that's wonderful, but hundreds of companies, a lot of different ways to be successful that don't involve IPO, and I think that the diversification of those funding models, setting aside ICOs.